Welcome to the Food Revolution Summit, where we explore together how you can heal your body and your world with food. I'm Ocean Robbins, and this next interview is with our guest, Dr. William Li. William Li, MD, is a world-renowned physician, scientist, angiogenesis expert, and president of the Angiogenesis Foundation. He's the New York Times best-selling author of Eat to Beat Disease, and his latest book, Eat to Beat Your Diet: Burn Fat, Heal Your Metabolism, and Live Longer. Dr. Li's groundbreaking work has impacted more than 70 diseases, including cancer, type 2 diabetes, blindness, heart disease, and obesity. He's the author of more than 100 scientific publications in journals like Science, the New England Journal of Medicine, and The Lancet. Dr. Li's TED Talk, Can We Eat to Starve Cancer?, has been viewed more than 11 million times. In the interview you're about to see, we'll be talking with Dr. Li about how what you eat has an impact on your brain health, the best ways to prevent blood vessel damage, and best practices for a healthy metabolism. Well, so great to be with you.
Thanks for having me.
So let's talk about food and brain health. What are some of your favorite foods for a healthy brain?
You know, it's a well-known fact that our gut's connected to our brain. So what we feed our gut will definitely affect our brain. You know, and this is really such a cutting-edge area of research, which is how our gut is indeed connected to our brain. And a lot of it seems to be centered around the gut microbiome. So when our bacteria, our healthy gut bacteria, are doing well, they communicate messages to our brain. In fact, brain health conditions like depression, schizophrenia, neurodegeneration like Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, other forms of dementia, all seem to be associated with dysbiosis or unhealthy gut bacteria. And so what we can actually do to improve and optimize our brain health is also at the same time to help our gut health. So some of my favorite foods really are legumes, which have an uncontested benefit of not only having some polyphenols, but a lot of dietary fiber. In fact, it's so profound that some of the research I've been doing, looking at how to feed the body, to feed the gut microbiome, you can get changes threefold of healthy bacteria in as little as 2 weeks.
Really? Okay, so what do people do to get changes in 2 weeks for their threefold changes?
I'm a cancer researcher, so some of my work has really been focused on trying to improve bacteria associated with better cancer outcomes. One of them is called Akkermansia, as an example, and Akkermansia is a bacteria that you can take a supplement of it, but by itself doesn't stick that well to your gut. However, if you feed the gut, and you feed the Akkermansia, it's kind of like putting fertilizer on as well as grass seed. You can really get it to bloom. So foods like pomegranate seeds or juice, cranberry, which could be dried cranberry or cranberry juice, the pure stuff, not the adulterated sugar, added sugar stuff. And interestingly, Concord grape juice has also been studied, which raises the issue. Of course, grapes are rich with polyphenols. What are the different species that actually, a plant, that actually helps you the most? And so that's an area of abundant research.
So you named a few specific things. Are there other foods that you think are really helpful for improving the microbiome?
Well, I mentioned beans. One of the things that I love, because I like to cook as well, and I reflect back on how I eat. And in my most recent book, Eat to Beat Your Diet, I have a whole chapter that's titled The Mediterranean Way of Eating, and that's actually how I eat. Two of the healthiest cuisines in the world, Mediterranean and Asian traditional cultures, ate a lot of whole plant-based foods and legumes, whether you're talking about soybeans, which actually are safe to eat. I'm a cancer researcher, so I can dispel that myth, but also white beans. I love in Mediterranean cuisine, there's a lot of stewing of white beans, and you can mix them with all kinds of herbs and spices and other vegetables to really light it up. And it's a great source of protein at the same time.
Earlier, you mentioned polyphenols. Can you
Yeah.
tell us what is a polyphenol and why does it matter and what foods provide them?
Right. Well, so polyphenols are a class of natural chemicals. Now, it's true, you can actually make them in the factory too. Some dietary supplements, in fact, rely on that. But I refer to polyphenols really as the intel inside of the food that we actually eat. So, broccoli, cauliflower, bok choy, so brassica, right? So they taste great. They have a slightly bitter. Bitter means better. They're great source of dietary fiber, but they also contain sulforaphanes. And sulforaphanes have this remarkable ability to be able to activate our body's health defenses, feed our gut microbiome, by the way, which then improves our brain health, and also activate our metabolism as well. And so here's sort of this, I call them grand slam foods, where you can actually swing the bat once and you can hit multiple runs in.
What about hydration? Does it matter what we drink and how much we drink?
Okay, so this is a big topic because our bodies are mostly water and we live on a water planet and our life depends on water. So depending on the way you want to address this topic, I would say first, we need to have plenty of hydration. Every athlete knows that. Every coach actually knows that. And anyone who's taking care of an older individual, I'm a physician, or taking care of an older parent knows that if you have dehydration, your health can actually go down really, really quickly. In fact, when you actually are dehydrated, your brain starts to shrink as well, and neurons start getting pared away, and your cognition and your attention and your memory starts to fail as well. This is why people lost in a desert, for example, very quickly start to make poor decisions, all right? So we want to be hydrated. So then the question is, what do we actually hydrate ourselves with? What's best? Water's the best. Now, I'm not going to get into microplastics. That's a much bigger topic than we can cover, and it's also an area of actual research. But I will tell you that water is the most popular beverage in the world, followed by green tea. Green tea not only has water, obviously, but it is abundant with tea polyphenols, including catechins, which are good for brain health and gut health and health defenses and metabolism at the same time, followed by coffee. Coffee with chlorogenic acid and many other polyphenols in its pure state it can also be a wonderful beverage as well. And these are three traditional beverages. Now, you might wonder, like, why did I mention red wine? Because everybody talks about the resveratrol in the skin of red grapes. Well, red wine has plenty of polyphenols. Resveratrol is not that easy to absorb from a glass of red wine. And the alcohol is actually dehydrating, has a dehydrating effect. So that's why I moved that out of the health equation. Water, tea, coffee.
What about like herbal teas like hibiscus tea or any others?
Sure. Any tea that's brewed or steeped with water is going to have mostly water. So that's really your source of hydration. Whatever you add to steep out of it, whether it's a plant like hibiscus or jasmine for jasmine tea to enhance that flavor, or rooibos is another African plant. Look, you're getting the water and you're actually getting the polyphenols and other natural bioactives that are coming out into the liquid. What I say is try to go and stick with traditional pure stuff. I generally tell people to be careful about flavored teas because just like flavored water, you have to really be sure that the flavoring is coming from a natural, safe source.
What about blood vessels? Can you tell us a little bit about our blood vessels and what causes blood vessel damage in the human body?
Okay, so my background is I'm a doctor, but I'm also a scientist. My area of science is called vascular biology. So I study blood vessels. A lot of us don't know this, but we're packed with 60,000 miles worth of blood vessels, you and me. So 120,000 miles between us. That is such a huge number of blood vessels. If you were to pull them all out and line them up end to end, you could form a thread that would wrap around the earth twice. Now, these are the highways and byways of our health because our blood vessels deliver the oxygen that we breathe and the nutrients that we eat to every cell and every organ in our body. When our blood vessels are healthy, it's easier for the rest of our body to be healthy. And when our blood vessels are sick, and I'll talk about that in a second, there's no chance that any other part of our body is going to be optimized in terms of its health. So keeping blood vessels healthy is really, really an important thing. What we now know from food as medicine research is that you can keep the lining of the blood vessels healthy. This is called the endothelial lining. Think about a layer of saran wrap put inside a garden hose to make sure that everything flows smoothly through the blood vessel. That can be damaged by chemicals. That could be damaged by cigarette smoke, too much alcohol, too much cholesterol, actually, in the blood can also damage that. Inflammation. One of the things that is emerging from the world of the pandemic that everyone experienced in 2020 is that one of the residual damages that can occur after COVID infection is in fact damage to this lining of the blood vessel. So it's more important than ever to be able to eat foods, fruits and vegetables, legumes, herbs and spices, seeds. These contain polyphenols and natural bioactives that can heal our endothelium. And as we get older, we always think about blocking, narrowing of blood vessels. Well, that narrowing occurs because the lining's been damaged, and then schmutz actually builds on it, kind of like in a sink that is starting to get clogged. When the pipes below the sink actually are starting to accumulate or damage, that's when the clogging occurs. So healing the inside of your blood vessels is important. However, we also know that we can eat foods that can help grow and foster new blood vessels where we need them. And also, there are foods that can actually mow down extra blood vessels so we don't wind up having problems with our vision or cancer, as an example, because cancers need to be fed by having new blood vessels growing into them.
One of the concepts you have brought to the world is angiogenesis and anti-angiogenesis. What do those words mean, and why is it important?
Right. Angiogenesis, angio, blood vessels, genesis is how they grow. This actually is the process by which our body grows blood vessels. It's also one of the hardwired defense systems in our body to ensure that the control of blood vessels, we don't have too many, we don't have too few, we have just the right amount to feed and nourish and oxygenate our cells and our organs. This is a really important concept, to have just the right amount of blood vessels. Too few, and our organs die, like heart after a heart attack, or brain after a stroke, or erectile dysfunction. Nerves have a problem in diabetes and other conditions, but actually it's the blood vessels that are feeding the nerves that are also damaged as well. Nerves need circulation. Without circulation, they begin to die or malfunction as well. What we've discovered in our lab are anti-angiogenic foods that can actually help, on one hand, mow down extra blood vessels in cancer, which is the other side of the equation. Cancers form all the time. You and I both have cancers right here, right now, growing in our body because it's natural. We have little mutations that happen as our cells divide. In fact, 10,000 mistakes occur in our DNA every 24 hours. And those form microscopic cancers, which will generally never harm us because they're not fed by a blood supply. So anti-angiogenic foods, and to give you some good examples, tomatoes, soy, brassica vegetables, nuts and legumes, strawberries, pomegranate, red grapes, Brussels sprouts. These are just some examples of foods that have anti-angiogenic capabilities. On the other hand, you can actually grow blood vessels when you need them as well. And this is where barley, fruit peel, mushrooms, all actually able to help us support the blood vessels we need. So what we're really aiming for when it comes to angiogenesis is not too many, not too few, but just the right amount. Our body's hardwired health defenses know how to do that. But what we eat can help our body do it much better.
Is there a danger if somebody needs to build more blood vessels of eating anti-angiogenic foods, or does the body kind of know what to do with those?
Body
foods?
knows exactly what to do, which is the wonderful thing. We're hardwired to. It's called the Goldilocks zone. At least that's what I call it. Remember the Goldilocks fairy tale? Not too many, not too few, not too hot, not too cold, not too hard, not too soft. Same thing with blood vessels. Our body knows how to get just the right amount. Now, with foods, we can prompt the growth of more blood vessels, but our body won't allow them to overgrow because food is kinder and gentler as a way of doing this. Now, I've been involved with biotechnology over the last 30 years. I can tell you there are drugs that have been developed that can actually overshoot very easily. But that's because drugs are sort of like the nuclear bombs of doing this, of doing what foods can do in a kinder, gentler, more naturalistic way. Just like, I would say that when you had polyphenols in your body, that can help angiogenesis. When you have excess, we tend to eliminate them just by through our urine, as an example. So we tend not to overload ourselves when you incorporate these anti-angiogenic or pro-angiogenic blood vessel supporting foods as part of our natural diet.
Let's talk a bit about metabolism. You've written about that extensively recently. What is metabolism and why does it matter?
Everyone thinks about their own metabolism at some point in their life. You have a lot of energy, you watch somebody else have a lot of energy, you reach middle age and you start to wonder why you're slowing down, right? So metabolism is, I would say, a common buzzword in almost everyone's lives, but there's so much that is misunderstood or understood incorrectly about metabolism. Right. So this is again a vocabulary word that is everyone's property, but a lot of people don't realize that the new research about human metabolism teaches us that much of what we used to think is actually wrong. So let's first talk about what is metabolism. Metabolism, there's a dictionary definition of it. The Wikipedia definition is very similar to the definition that I learned when I was in medical school. It's a net sum of the chemical reactions in the body and blah, 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 blah. Okay. It would make my head spin, so I would imagine it would make anybody who's watching his head spin as well. It doesn't have context. I like to think about it in more simple to understand ways in my own life. Metabolism is pretty much how our body gets fuel to be able to power up all the functions that we want to have to go about our everyday lives, or sometimes something more superhuman that we need to actually do. So we need that energy. Everyone knows when you're lagging in energy, it's something that we want to actually improve on. And so the question is, where do we get our energy from for our metabolism? So very simply put, our food is our fuel. Our metabolism is how we process that fuel and deliver it to our body. So our metabolism in our body is not dissimilar to how a car uses gasoline or petrol in its tanks in order to power its engine. We don't normally think about, when we're driving a car, we don't normally think about the gas tank and our fuel tank until the fuel gauge runs low. Then that's what we focus on. We got to get to a filling station. And that's really how our body works as well. When our energy levels are low, when the fuel's low in our body, our internal fuel system gauges says we got to fill up. And so what do? We pull over to the dining room table, we pull over to the restaurant or a pantry to grab something to actually eat. So metabolism, very simply put, is how our body uses fuel. That's the starting point to understanding how our body is actually hardwired to have an optimal metabolism.
So a lot of people think it's better to have a faster metabolism, which kind of means they're using more fuel per unit of energy produced, so to speak, or per action taken, because that lets them eat more, because people like to consume. Is that fair to what higher metabolism is? Like you burn at a higher temperature, or what does that mean?
Like other systems in our body, we're hardwired to have this range of optimal function. So when people talk about higher metabolism, I can tell you as a doctor what I think about when a patient comes to me and describes the symptoms of a higher metabolism. They're super wired, they're sweating, their heart's racing, they feel like they got all kinds of energy, have trouble sleeping. I think of thyroid disease as one example. And so ultra high metabolism isn't necessarily a good thing. It's associated with many different diseases. However, you don't want to have too low metabolism because that could be associated with adrenal or other hormonal endocrine diseases as well. So what I try to do is to talk to people more about food and metabolism as that middle range of where we want to be. And as it turns out, we are all born with the exact same metabolism. Most people think, my sibling was lucky. She was born with a super fast metabolism. That's why she's skinny, has a stick, and can eat anything, right? And then they say, me, I was born with a slow metabolism. That's why I have to watch my food my whole life. Well, that's actually not entirely true. We're all pretty much born with the same hardwired metabolism, the way that we're born with the same kidney function, brain function, heart function, and thyroid function. What happens is that over the course of our lives, we can actually get off the beaten path and we can go off-road, and that's when metabolism starts to get damaged.
So why do some people feel like no matter how much they eat, they're still overweight? Even if they eat very little, it just seems like their body's grabbing onto fat and keeping it. And other people feel like they're burning fat easily.
I'm glad you mentioned the connection between fat and metabolism, because this is also new research, is that our body's metabolism, good, strong, vibrant metabolism, absolutely depends on our body fat. Most of the time we think our body fat's our enemy. No, our body fat is in fact a critical player to help our metabolism. Our fat does a couple of things. It actually serves as padding, okay? It serves as a fuel tank. So in fact, for metabolism, where do we store our fuel? We store it in our fat. If you look at fat cells as our fuel tank, when we eat, our metabolism takes that energy and stores it into fat cells called adipocytes. And then when we actually need the energy, our metabolism switches gears. So we can go from fuel or food energy storing mode into fuel burning mode. When we burn down energy, we're burning down fat. So we need that. Now, the other thing about fat is that it is an endocrine organ. A lot of people don't realize this, is that our fat is an organ. It releases hormones that help the insulin in our body absorb glucose more efficiently. So a lot of people say, oh, you don't want to have a glucose spike. Be careful of what you eat. Cut down on your fruits and don't eat anything with added sugars. There's wisdom to all of those factors. But in fact, if you have normal, healthy amounts of body fat, there's a hormone called adiponectin made by body fat that actually helps your insulin draw in that glucose more efficiently into your bloodstream. You know how high your adiponectin levels are? If we were in my clinic and we were to draw a vial of your blood right now and send it away to measure it, and what I would say is, Ocean, I want to measure every hormone in your body, including adiponectin. Your adiponectin would come back 1,000 times higher than every other hormone in your body. Everyone. You know why? Because you need that fat-produced hormone to regulate your insulin. It works side by side with your insulin, which then regulates your metabolism. The other thing that fat produces is leptin. Leptin helps to signal to our brain that we're full, that the fuel tank is filled. So when leptin's high, your fuel gauge says full. You can actually stop eating. You can put the nozzle back from the gas tank back into the filling station. You can drive off with your car. Same deal. So how do people actually get into trouble? Simplest thing that can happen is overeating. In fact, there was a study that was done just a few years ago looking at ultra-processed food versus whole foods. And it showed that the ultra-processed foods are engineered in a way that makes us want to overconsume. So I think that the answer to your question is, what are some things that happen to derail our metabolism? In our society is the overconsumption of ultra-processed foods and the overconsumption of added sugars.
So if somebody wants to burn fat, what are the top things they're going to want to do to help their body do that effectively?
Cut down or cut out ultra-processed foods. Eliminate, ditch the soda, including diet soda. A lot of people don't know this, but although artificial sweeteners in diet sodas are non-nutritive, so you don't get a blood glucose spike from it, actually it's worse for your metabolism than a regular can of soda, which is it's a pretty tall order. It's pretty hard to actually be worse than a can of regular soda, and I'll tell you why. It's been increasingly shown that the artificial sweeteners in diet sodas poison our gut microbiome, and our gut health, our gut bacteria actually help process glucose more efficiently. So in fact, you do actually have a elevation in your glucose trend when you drink a lot of diet sodas. So I would say ultra-processed food cut down or cut out sodas of all sorts. And you want to and you want to start eating more plant-based foods. And one of the things that my more recent research has focused on are what are the foods that contain metabolism activating substances that help us burn down harmful body fat, because you could be visibly overweight or on a scale, but we now know that that's a too crude a way to think about body fat metabolism. Too much body fat slows down your metabolism. It's not the other way around. It's not that a slow metabolism causes you to gain weight. It's the other way around. Too much body fat sits on your metabolism and slows it down. So you want to burn off excess body fat. There's lots of ways to do that. Gut health is critical. Staying away from foods that help you gain calories, more energy, is critical. But the new science of the metabolism teaches us we can burn down harmful body fat by activating a special kind of fat called brown fat. And brown fat can burn down harmful white fat. So this is sort of a war of fat in our body. And even skinny people can actually have this. So, the two of us sitting here, we look like we're, probably in pretty good shape. We probably eat pretty healthily. But I can tell you there are many people that look just like us that have huge amounts of harmful excess white fat, visceral fat, packed inside the tube of our body. And that's why, in order to improve metabolism, regardless of your body size, you want to actually fight visceral fat.
So what foods promote brown fat that fights visceral fat?
Okay, so first of all, visceral fat's kind of white fat. White fat's lumpy bumpy. Okay, it's the stuff under your arm, under your chin. It's the muffin top. It's in the thighs and the butt. Okay, visceral fat's invisible. You can't see it because it's packed inside the body. It's also white fat. Brown fat's different. So we want to get rid of those kinds of fat. Brown fat, or do you want to fight it? Brown fat's different. Brown fat is paper thin. And it's not on the surface, so you can't see it. It's close to the bone. And where does brown fat live? It lives on both sides of our neck, behind our breastbone, and a little bit under our arms, and a little bit in our belly. And it's been shown that brown fat will be triggered by cold temperatures. Now, you've heard about the cold plunges that are healthy. It works. But also certain foods can trigger brown fat. Now, when you trigger brown fat, what does it do? You're using bioactives to push a series of dominoes in our body that trigger the brown fat to fire up its energy. Okay, so it can actually generate heat. It's called thermogenesis. And foods like tomatoes, beans, apple cider vinegar, a huge number of whole grains, an example, mushrooms, onions, they've all been shown to trigger our brown fat. So that allows our healthy, helpful brown fat to burn down the harmful white fat.
One food we haven't talked about a lot that I know you are a fan of is berries. Can you tell us a bit about the health benefits of berries, and are there any particular berry superstars we should be thinking about?
Right. Well, most of these berries are the fruit of multiple plants, including vines or small, low-lying shrubs. And they're very popular, right? They're these kind of little juicy. Every kid knows that when they're growing up, their parents feed them, they have berries around, like it sort of portends something sweet and delicious, right? And they kind of look like candy. In fact, there are candies that are made to look like berries. The ones that are my favorite that I know research has been done on to show their human benefits that I think are really powerful are strawberries and blueberries and cranberries. Those are three common ones. You can find them in the grocery store anywhere. And strawberries contain ellagic acid, among many other bioactives, polyphenols. Blueberries contain proanthocyanidins and anthocyanins, which actually give them the blue dye color. Eggplant skins also have that. And then cranberries also have a number of polyphenols that are cranberry-based, and they can contribute to the tartness of the cranberry as well. So what do these bioactives do? They activate our health defense systems. They help our blood vessels become healthier. Angiogenesis, health defense. They can even protect our stem cells and help us regenerate and repair ourselves more easily from the inside out. These berries contain some amount of dietary fiber, but the polyphenols are prebiotics that help our gut health improve as well. They are antioxidant in activity, so they protect our DNA, and they're anti-inflammatory. Now, how do we know this? Because strawberries and blueberries have been actually studied in human research to look at their anti-inflammatory effect. A great study with blueberries was done in athletes where they, most people don't know this, but when you work out, you're actually inducing a lot of inflammation, and your body has to trigger anti-inflammatory responses after you exercise to recover. Professional athletes will tell you that, they have to work out and train for the game, but very importantly, after the game, there's a huge amount of preparation that they have to do in order to get back into shape. And that a lot of that's controlling inflammation for recovery. Berries are a secret weapon for that. Blueberries are one of them. And you don't have to have a lot. Just a cup of blueberries a day can actually help to lower inflammation.
Tomatoes.
Tomatoes are a fruit. Kind of bridging on from berries to tomatoes. Tomatoes are one of my favorite foods. They are used in both Asian as well as European, Mediterranean type of cooking. A lot of people don't realize this. And tomatoes didn't originate either in Europe or Asia. Tomatoes actually came from Latin America. They were brought over by the Spaniards, explorers over to Europe. And they contain a number of really great things for our health. Vitamin C, great source of great antioxidant, good for protecting our DNA. They contain lycopene, carotenoids like lycopene, which, by the way, helps to make a tomato red. The lycopene is really powerful. It's anti-angiogenic. So studies have shown in more than 30,000 men that those men who eat more servings of cooked tomatoes per week have about a lower risk of prostate cancer. 2 to 3 servings of cooked tomatoes lowers the risk of prostate cancer by 29%. The other interesting thing is to study that this lycopene can improve your metabolism by fighting harmful visceral fat, which helps you lose weight, improve your metabolism, and activates your brown fat. So how do we know this? Studies have been done in Portugal in normal, healthy college students and grad students. So these are young, healthy people, women, without any overt problems in weight. And all they got was one ripe tomato to add to their diet, not to replace, to add to their diet. And they, over the course of a month, just adding one tomato before lunch every day, lost 1.2 pounds. So a single tomato can start to change, and their waist circumference also got a little bit smaller. Waist circumference is important because visceral fat is found in the tube of our body. When our visceral fat grows, our belt gets tighter. We need our waist circumference increases. So one of the most sensitive markers of metabolic health is actually our waist circumference. So tomatoes can actually help to improve that as well.
Okay, lastly, you wrote your most recent book. You've written a bunch of great books. Most recent one, Eat to Beat Diet. Can you tell us why you wrote Eat to Beat Diet and what is the core thesis of it?
My first book was Eat to Beat Disease, and it's really about how our body responds to the foods that we feed it from a health defense perspective. And I worked in all those health defenses from the biotech perspective. So I brought the food perspective into that. Food as medicine became my sort of center of research. And I wanted to ask my second book, where do we go next? How do we take our health to the next level? Let's say you have all of your health defenses in good shape already. How do you improve from that? And it turns out metabolism is where the bullseye for elevating your health to that next level is. So, for those people who are watching this who are already in good shape, already take care of themselves, are very savvy about how to live a good life, reduce stress, eat healthy food, exercise, physical activity, et cetera, et cetera. How do you actually go to that next level? And to me, I want to write a book that talks about the improving the invisible, and that's our metabolism. And because my research started to peel back the layers of the onion to see how many myths there were. Metabolism we're all born with the same metabolism. Metabolism does not automatically decrease when we reach middle age. It's amazing. It does decrease a little bit when we're 60 or older, but middle age is designed to be rock stable. Teenagers who are bouncing off the wall with energy don't have a rising, soaring, skyrocketing metabolism. They have a declining metabolism. So all these, and it's not that the slow metabolism causes you to gain body fat. Body fat slows down your metabolism. All these myths, I realized, deserved a book to shatter them. And readers, I wanted my readers to be able to appreciate that the good news is that our metabolism, in fact, is under our control. It's not a fate. That no matter where you are in your life journey, in your health journey, we can actually control our metabolism. And the simple step it can take is to address that invisible fat. Look, I'm totally into appreciating what makes people feel good about themselves, self-esteem. Look in the mirror, you want to step on the scale, you want to feel like it's a healthy number. but the invisible stuff is the thing you want to go after, and that is body fat. So I shatter the myths in my book about fat and metabolism, and then I show people how you can eat a healthy Mediterranean style diet, which is how I eat myself, in order to be able to love your food and love your health and metabolism at the same time.
And it's available wherever good books are sold. Eat to Beat Diet. Wonderful, Will. Thank you so much for your brilliance and your leadership. One last question for you. Why do we need a food revolution?
We are in the middle of a food revolution, and the food revolution is happening in many different ways. We are revolting against the food patterns that emerged from the 1950s to go from industrialized, highly processed, ultra-processed food into a more informed way of eating whole plant-based foods. As going back to the future, we now know that to eat for our future, we want to eat more like people, our relatives and ancestors ate in the past. That's one revolution. Another revolution is the scientific revolution, which is what I take part in, discovering what's in those beneficial foods. That is changing the game, because as we're looking at healthy plant-based foods, we're also beginning to discover what's inside them. Not just the what, but the how. Once you understand the hows, then the whys become more logical to choose, make good choices. We got a lot to combat. We got a lot of marketing from big food companies to actually try to counter. I think that to help people make good choices, you want them to actually realize there's something to aim for. I think that's much more effective than telling somebody to eliminate something. Reach for something beneficial. And then finally, I think that we're beginning to have another revolution of understanding how our body responds to what we feed it. So those are three legs of the stool feeding the food revolution.
We've been talking with Dr. William Li, renowned scientist, New York Times best-selling author of Eat to Beat Disease and Eat to Beat Diet. Will, thank you so much for your innovation, for your research, for your advocacy, and for your partnership in the food revolution.
Thanks very much, Ocean. Always a pleasure.